Hello and welcome to another episode of Rebel City Podcast. This week's guest was Paul Sweeney MP. Paul is the Labour MP for Glasgow North East, which just so happens to be Matt's constituency. We had a really good chat with Paul, even though neither me or Matt have voted for Labour in the last sort of general elections or Scottish Parliament elections, and we're both independent supporters. We get right in about it with Paul, and we loved a lot of what he was saying. We spoke about Brexit, the recent sort of affront to democracy that we've been seeing in the past couple of weeks, which, as I record this, it's been announced has been found to be illegal. We spoke about money in politics and hedge funds basically controlling politicians while they're shorting the pound in the face of a no-deal Brexit. We even got Paul to talk about sort of what would Labour's answer to this mess be. We also spoke about a couple of the sort of local issues, Glasgow specific issues that we've been talking about with people in the last sort of episodes. Ask the 700 comes up, the Cali was a prominent point of discussion, and just about sort of local activism in general. Matt even talks about Paul's impressive track record and how visible he's been as his MP, and that he would definitely be voting for him in a general election. So, I mean, we think that this is an appropriate time to put this podcast out because of the stuff that's been going on, and also the ruling the day in the Supreme Court that the propagation of Parliament has been illegal. So I hope you enjoy the episode. If there's any feedback, as always, we're on Twitter. Give us a shout at Rebel City Pod.
I made a promise.
So, and welcome to another episode of Rebel City Podcast. This week we've got the privilege of having Paul Sweeney, MP, here. How's it going, Paul?
Aye, not bad. How are you?
Not bad, mate.
It's nice
not
to meet
bad.
you,
Aye, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Sure.
It's an early podcast. My girlfriend was raging when I told her last night, I'm podcasting at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Just jumping a bit, please.
Aye, that's it. Aye, it's like delays.
So, Paul, you're actually my local MP, and funnily enough, completely coincidental to this, I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she was, just what you did in school, and she was, I'm writing letters in English, and I was like, okay. She was like, I was like, who are you writing letters to? And she's like, I'm writing a letter to my local MP. And I don't think she's actually posting you letters. I think you're just being used as the exemplar for, the actual exercise itself. And I was like, so, what are you writing about now? I happen to be also like talking to your local MP in like 2 days' time. And she was going, oh, no way. I went, so what are you writing about? And she was like, I'm writing about homelessness. And I was like, okay, so what it is, get your letter, come back to me with a question, and I'll, open the show asking, your local MP a question at your letter. And I went up to this morning and was like, what's your question? And she was like, I forgot about it. So missed opportunity and one less question on homelessness that you need to face.
There's no shortage of questions, that's for
I know,
sure.
definitely. So ordinarily we kind of joke in a few previous episodes about, it's time that you're on a podcast when, you speak about Brexit. I think when we plan to air this episode, we're going to be in like peak Brexit territory. So I think we're going to pretty much just kind of open the day, kind of try to get into it a wee bit. I think, the prorogation that we've faced is pretty much unprecedented in the terms that it's been implemented. And I don't really know how anybody can look at it and not see it as a fairly cynical ploy to kind of essentially bypass our political process. I would love, as a sitting MP, now to hear, kind of where your thoughts are on this, because we live in a representative democracy where our representatives are being actively excluded for the process, and that, for me, is just an absolute scandal.
Yeah, I mean, I never planned to be an MP, to be perfectly honest with you. We got elected in June 2017, and the day I was elected, I was 16 to 1 to bookies. You know,
All right.
so it was a bit of a long shot to even end up as an MP. But certainly, it's been one hell of a learning curve.
Yeah.
Did you make any money off that?
I think my dad might have put,
Did
my
you
dad-
put
on
any
yourself?
money on
I
it?
think my dad might have put a tenner on. I don't like tempting fate, so I never
Right.
really need it. But the thing is, it's been one hell of a learning curve since I got elected, because our political system's just in the most crazy state it's been for probably in generations. Actually,
Yeah.
I mean, at least in our lifetimes. So, I mean, I keep asking some of the older folk, like, is this not, has ever had anything like this before?
Aye.
And everybody's like, no, this is not. It was actually with one of the previous MPs for the area, Maria Fife. She was the MP from the late 80s to the early 2000s in Milton, Mary Hill.
Yep.
And I was asking her, like, is this anything that they ever had anything, even during Thatcher's years and all that, was anything like this? And she's like, no, this is totally unprecedented.
Yeah.
And I mean, in that sense, it's interesting, I suppose, to be part of that and see it in the front line of it. But on the other hand, it's incredibly distressing to see the way things have been handled by a
Yeah.
bunch of what I can only call sociopaths who
Well.
have total contempt. In fact, I wouldn't even say it's an element of contempt or ignorance, but the pain and suffering caused by decision making from a class of people who can't reference or even begin to empathise with the lives of a lot of people and how
Yeah.
they face the challenges of what's been done. And, I never thought I'd find myself agreeing with John Major. Although I don't remember him really as Prime Minister, because I think I was like 6 when he started being
I'm
Prime
with you.
Minister. But I was listening to this speech he made in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about folk saying Brexit is like, well, it's worth it. Even if we take a hit, it's worth it. He was
Yeah.
saying, and he's like, that's an incredibly selfish thing to say, because you might think that's worth it,
Yeah.
but how can you speak for the person next
Yeah.
door to you who might not be able to take the hit, because it's the difference between eating or having a job or not,
Yeah.
or heating your house, because you don't know what financial stress they might be under. That might be the buckaroo moment for them.
Yeah.
Just the thing that's the straw that broke the camel's back for them. And I think when you put it into that context, I can't believe I was hearing that from a Tory, but you just realise not just how, in its own terms, destructive this whole thing's been, but also that even when you've got a former Tory Prime Minister calling it out,
Yeah.
you got to wonder how far politics has shifted to an extreme.
Yeah.
Of
course.
Definitely been hijacked to an extent. I think when you look at Major and particularly like the expulsion of guys like Ken Clark, I think you actually see that there was a time where you might have disagreed ideologically with Tories, but they were, particularly in these two examples, like fiscal conservatives. Like, whereas what we're seeing now is,
it's kind of disaster
it's
capitalism.
far right. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And there is a difference in the mindsets. Like, but at the same time, when the grandees of your own party are saying this is wrong, that should be enough pause for thought. But they're just being, discarded by their own party.
But to an extent, you can also look at it as a class issue, because the people that form the current government are disproportionately from Eton, Oxford, Bullingdon Club,
Yeah.
people who have never had to live with the consequences of their actions or have even understood what the meaning is to live hand to mouth, or even having to make ends meet. And I suppose to an extent, you could say give some credit to somebody like John Major, because he never went to university, grew up in a working class background. I think he started as a bus conductor.
Right.
So he's kind of one of those working class Tories of the old school
He has a perspective.
who kind of there was a tradition of that at one point,
Yeah.
but it's just that I think the whole political system has moved into this corporate world
Yeah.
where it's big money, it's influenced by a sort of institutional capitalism that's totally beyond what we used to ever
Yeah.
see in politics, and that's what's driven this extreme positions. I'd argue that it was foolish in the extreme for David Cameron when he was the Prime Minister to agree to a referendum like that, because it's just casino politics. You're just chucking everything on a roulette wheel and hoping
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the result plays out as you think it's going to play out. And it didn't. It backfired massively. Put the whole country on black. It came up red.
Yeah.
And the problem with the question in itself was difficult, because this is what we're grappling with. We've got 52% of the country that said leave the EU, right? Cool. Can anyone actually define what that
What
means?
that meant?
Because now we've got Farage and all these kind of folk jumping out saying, oh, it means so-called clean break.
Yeah. Customs Union and
everything-
EEA and all these
everything's
types
out.
of things.
When it's during the campaign, it was all, oh, don't worry, it'll be like Norway, it'll be like Switzerland, we're
Yep.
still in the customs union, we'll still trade and all that. This is just about leaving the
bureaucracy or whatever.
Even then, you make the argument you're leaving the thing that influences decisions are just going to be then subject to the decisions.
Yep.
So, like, no matter which way you cut it, in my view, you always arrive back at the situation where you're like, well, where we are just now is actually the best deal we've got. But in the same point, though, the reason why it's driven a lot of concerns and a lot of anguish and a lot of disputes is you still get 17 odd million people that voted leave, and including a big chunk of the, even in Glasgow North East, about 40 odd % of the folk voted leave. And I mean, the biggest problem with that is actually only 50% of people turned out in Glasgow North East to vote, and that's a big problem. Like it's the lowest voting constituency in Britain.
All right.
And that's a big challenge. Getting working class people to engage with politics is hard enough. And then if they're putting on the televisions and watching all this shambles play out, I mean, how are you selling it?
How do you engage with that?
Most people are just like, this is just nipping my head. I don't want to get involved with it. But the irony of it is, of course, the working class has the most to lose from not engaging in it, and that's the hardest thing to say to the people who need to see their representation in the political system the most. Aren't engaging with it.
Because it's been made more opaque in their terms than in any other class or constituency.
You're getting the Tories doing things very cynically though to suppress working class people voting. So like IDs to go and vote now. They're getting they can't just stay on the electoral register. You need to re-register every time for
this
an
is
election.
all like stuff that they've got for like the Republican Party in America.
It's how they suppress the black
vote.
vote.
Exactly. See, as a politician that's got like a sort of inside look, why do people like Rees-Mogg, Johnson, Farage want Brexit? Is it something that they're not? Is there something that they're not telling us, or are they really just that stupid that
they have it for different reasons? Actually, in my view, Farage is basically a British nationalist. And I think to an extent, for Rees-Mogg is just a kind of very old-fashioned, sort of lives in the 19th century, sort of
wants it to be like Victorian times.
Yeah, but he's kind of like what you call a mercantilist. So he believes that there should be almost a sort of form of free trade and protectionism. It's a sort of weird. It's a sort of weird, very old-fashioned view about you can't have these big cooperative trading blocks.
So, like British values for British people, and sort of we should be in charge of our own trade, and it shouldn't be anything to do with it. We should keep all of the money.
But it's live or die after success we're in.
And it's a very, very old-fashioned and quite simplistic view of the world. Particularly when we see the challenge. It's interesting to see the generational shifts because, like, young people recognise that the challenges facing us all are global in nature, and the more interdependence and cooperation is the better, rather than it being the other way.
Isolationism helps nobody.
But as for Johnson, he's a total mercenary and opportunist. I don't believe he has any real intellectual or ideological principles that underpin his decisions to leaving the European Union, other than to advance his own personal agenda.
So kind of like Trump, exactly. Like
it's just basically the latest vehicle to hitch his trailer to become Prime Minister. And he's been successful, but it's kind of like turned out to be a bit of a poison chalice for him, given how disastrous the last few weeks have played out.
I would like to take a minute to say that I think it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, because his blind ambition and just win that premiership at all costs, to then instantly see him lose vote after vote after vote, lose total control
he's now got
of the
the record
House
for the most defeated Prime Minister in office.
And you're just like, that's a nice juxtaposition for me, that his ambition has been met by just total systemic indifference.
The guy can't even walk the
agenda.
streets. Any time you've just seen video after video of people going up and challenging and abusing him, pretty much. I mean, I use the word abuse lightly here, but basically going, go away, we don't want you here. Like people saying, get out of my city, get out of my town,
go to Brussels and
it's
negotiate.
Crazy.
There's been a couple of belters. I love the guy in Yorkshire. It was just like, please leave my town. He's just
like, he was like smiling and going, don't worry, like I won't be here long.
That was brutal in a way. It was just because the guy was very polite about it.
I think he's definitely
shook his hand while he said it to him.
A bit meme-tastic as well. Yesterday was the press conference with the President or Prime Minister of Luxembourg, and he's standing with the empty podium, and people have been like photoshopping in the Homer Simpson disappearing into the back of the hedge, and you're just like, that is what we're now with a prime minister that we actively think of in cartoonish terms, and he's been in the job like 3 weeks.
The tragedy of it all is normal politics is being totally displaced by all of this.
Absolutely.
And that's the tragedy of it. What I always think about is people go, oh, this factory shut down and that's X number of jobs lost because of Brexit or whatever. But I always then think, well, how many companies would have done something but they haven't done it because of the uncertainty around it?
Absolutely.
And you're thinking, how do you even begin to qualify? How do you even begin to quantify that? You know, that is massive. All the lost opportunities.
Projects on hold or whatever.
Yeah, and nobody's seen it. Nobody's felt the loss of it, so they didn't pick it up. But there's loads of it that's going on, you know. And even in Glasgow, there's been projects that having to happen because companies are waiting to see what's going to happen next. They can't just.
And if you're in charge of a company, or even to an extent maybe a government department or whatever it is, and this uncertainty's out there, like, it is prudent of you at this point to now be cautious. You know what I mean? Like, so
it's also things like universal credit, for example, which is rolling out and it's affecting a lot of people in Glasgow North East. In fact, Glasgow North East, in my area, there'll be the most number of universal credit claimants of anywhere in Scotland.
Right.
And the thing is, it's not been given anywhere near the public scrutiny it should have been. If Brexit wasn't going on, that'd been the number one political issue getting dealt with in Britain right now. And the fact that there was so much weight of public opinion behind it, you'd influence the government much more. And that's the thing as well. It's been used as a massive distraction to drive through some pretty horrific changes to public policy that are harming poor people. So it's actually divide and rule in a sense. You've got people at each other's throats over Brexit. You get working class people, totally, trapped in this idea, but I'm leave, I'm remain, blah blah blah, and they're defining themselves in that sense. Whereas actually, what they should be saying is, we're all united against forces that are exploiting us.
Absolutely.
And that's the hardest thing right now to get through to folk. Because everybody's like, what's Labour's position on Brexit? What's Labour's position on this? And you're like, we don't get out of bed in the morning. I say as a Labour person, we don't get out of bed in the morning going, oh, Brexit. What I'm getting out of bed in the morning to do is, how do I help bring more skilled industrial work to my constituency? How do I help get people out of poverty? How do I help improve the living standards of people in my area? How do I actually materially and tangibly help people live better lives locally? Housing, healthcare, social security, skilled opportunities for training, and then to get employment that's dignified and and all that kind of thing. That's what I want to see happen.
Definitely.
How do we deal with the fact that never in our history has a bigger share of our national wealth been taken out in profit by owners of business and exploiters of capitalists, and that never before has a share of the national pie in wages been smaller. So the amount of people that are actually taking a share out in their wages, the people who create the wealth, the workers producing the goods, the services,
are not getting any
benefit. They're getting an ever smaller share of the proceeds of what they're doing. And that's what the Labour Party exists, basically, if you want to go back to its funding principles. It exists to organise working class people to capture a bigger share of the national wealth in their own pockets in the form of wages, right? And you do that through a combination of trade union organisation in the workplace to present influence against the owners of the businesses, and you also do it politically by putting MPs in Parliament to pass laws and legislation that helps to advance working class interests.
And every column inch that is dedicated to Rees-Mogg lounging on a parliamentary bench is a column inch that we're not talking about why we're not doing these things anymore.
So it's kind of like, it's frustrating for me in this context, because like, people are just obsessed with this issue, and I understand why it's important. Obviously, I've got my views about it, obviously, but it's kind of like, how the hell do we reconcile this? How do we get it dealt with and move on so we can get back to the agenda where it needs to be, which is this rampant exploitation that's going on in society? And a lot of it's to do with Brexit, because a lot of it is financial interests that are driving why Brexit's happening and the way it's happening.
Definitely.
Why can Parliament not agree a way forward? Part of the reason is because the Conservative Party are so obsessed with their own self-preservation, or at least were under Theresa May.
It's almost been a psychodrama for their party.
It's an internal civil war in the Tory party between British nationalists or English nationalists in the Tory party and sort of centrist kind of blue liberal Democrat kind of types like Ken Clark and that, who were fighting within the Tory party for a way forward. And it's been it's been a total kryptonite for the Tory party for at least 30 years, this issue, since the European Union was kind of created officially in the early 90s. And John Major had all the issues with them, and Thatcher to an extent, and then Cameron. But what you're seeing is this isn't a solution that's involved the country.
No.
And it was quite interesting to see, what some of the kind of elder statesmen, if you like, and grandees were saying about it. They were saying it was crazy to try and just say Theresa May would go and secure the deal, and she'd be like kind of Joan of Arc style. That would just go over and champion and fight and bring the deal back. What it should have involved was a whole team from every political party, and then there should have been a series of votes in Parliament to say, here's all the various ideas of what Brexit could look like. No, there's no whips or anything like that. There's no being forced to vote a certain way. Everybody just vote with what they think is the best idea. We'll get a consensus in Parliament about what the terms should be, and then you trigger the Article 50 clock for the 2-year time period, and then go over and say, right, we've agreed as a country, this is what leave should probably look like.
Absolutely.
And let's agree.
It's funny that
a deal.
at
The
a
fact
time
that didn't happen is as screwed us.
And when Brexit was being discussed and voted on a national level, like parliamentary sovereignty was this, almost like kind of half-empty buzzword, really, especially when you see the actions of those who have, taken control prior to, recent votes. But like parliamentary sovereignty was, we will be sovereign, and then, as I say, the vote went through, and as a nation, we voted to leave by a fairly narrow margin. But at the same time, that for me was the moment where we go, well, if Parliament is sovereign, right, Parliament should have obviously led that. But as I say, the Tory party completely cut the knees out from under it. And I think it has been about stopping scrutiny to an extent, because when we talk about these corporate and sort of financial interests sort of driving a lot of this, one of the questions, I watched a documentary on Netflix about...
Sure, it wasn't YouTube.
It wasn't YouTube. It wasn't that. It was the fella who was... It was called Betting on Zero. It was a guy who was taking out short positions against Herbalife to try and basically destabilise them because he thinks that they're a pyramid scheme and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, cool. And I'd seen the Big Short, and I was like, so this is now starting to make sense to me. And I asked a question on my social media along the lines of, I would be really interested to see who, if anyone, benefits for short positions against like the pound in and around our sort of parliamentary process. And I think last week there was a publication for Byline Times that was retweeted by I can never pronounce her surname, but I want to say Caroline Caldwell for The Guardian. Like, she's an extremely high-end journalist. Like, so for me, the story has a veracity, but they were quoting figures up in the like 8.3 billion range, where something like 4.7 billion had came from people who had backed Vote Leave, with the remaining 3 point whatever billion coming from people who had directly contributed to the election or the ascension of Boris Johnson to power. And you're like, for me, that is where the scrutiny of Parliament has been sort of hamstrung, because I don't, and again, I'm not a financial expert, but like, I see a political class, or at least members of a political class, actively vandalising our economy while simultaneously betting against it for benefit. And I don't get why we can't treat that like insider trading. Like, so if there was a banker who knew his company was about to collapse and started taking out short positions against his own company, that guy would go to jail. But I don't get where the...
Or would he?
Well, maybe he should go to jail, but at the same time, we now have Johnson's and Rees-Moggs, and, they've moved companies to Dublin so that they still benefit for the EU even when we're outside it and stuff like that. And I'm a bit like, I don't get how somebody can walk into the chambers, vandalise our economy, benefit for it, and then that's all that really gets to happen about it. I mean, is that something that am I miles off here in my assessment? Is that something that has come up in conversations about this type of stuff?
No, I don't think you're fairly accurate, to be honest with you, because one of the things that is quite mind-blowing when you get into Parliament is, particularly in the Conservative Party, the extent to which there's massive institutional interests.
Right.
But
I think landlords is one of the big ones, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the extent to which huge not even lobbying, but just institutional moneyed backgrounds. Like, Rees-Mogg is on the same corridor as me in Parliament in our offices. And, although he's a fair enough polite person to actually, if you pass in the corridor, they'll say hello to you and stuff, but you recognise that this guy's worth hundreds of millions of pounds.
Yeah.
I I don't mean MPs earn a very good salary,
Of course.
but to put it in context, you earn less than the local GP.
Right.
The point is that wages for MPs was created to allow working class people to become MPs, because before it was privately wealthy city bankers and brokers who would do it, and actually Parliament doesn't start until 11 o'clock every day, Monday to Thursday, because traditionally it was for the gentlemen to go to the city of London and do their trading in the morning and then come to Parliament in the afternoon. And that's what
incredible.
it was.
I've never heard that.
That's what it was like. So the traditions have only changed in the last century, because the enfranchisement of working class people, women, and then the emergence of a Labour Party in Parliament has changed the dynamics of how it used to work. It was just a gentleman's club before, and many of the traditions of that still linger on. But I think you're right about the influence of moneyed backgrounds, whether it's financing the Leave campaign, it's also maybe there's influence of foreign powers in it as well. I'm convinced that there's geopolitical interference in it by people who want to see the breakup of the European Union for their own interests, most notably Russia. I think there's also concerns about basically disaster capitalists who are taking bets on mayhem taking place and then profiting from it.
So that thing when, after 9/11, people were pure, oh my God, people made money in the stock markets off the back of airline stock crashing and these other things. That's disgraceful. But then it feels almost like a proactive tactic in the scenario that we're in. So it's went in the space of 10, 15 years from being this disgusting thing that we should all be outraged by to being literally the driving force behind one of the biggest political changes we've ever seen.
I agree, but I think a lot of city institutions have actually lost control of the Tory party under Johnson, and it's been run by a very, very extreme fringe. And actually, I think you're seeing a lot of the institutional money now flowing into the Liberal Democrats. Believe it or not. I was interested to see
a lot of airtime and a lot of coverage.
Yeah, it was interesting to see their position shift at their party conference this week. But one of the things that I kind of unwittingly ended up when I first got elected, I remember going along to one of the MPs was like, "Oh, come along to this evening soiree thing at this guy's house."
Right.
And I'd just been in a week or something. I was like, yeah, I'll come along with you. It sounded like an interesting night. And went across to the river to Vauxhall. It was just over the river from Parliament. And it turned out to be like this multi-millionaires, city brokers townhouse.
Oh, right, okay.
And it had like servants serving like food in the back garden. And like you would believe the amount of MPs that were there from like different political parties. But I was just like, all right, this is how it works then.
Aye.
And I was a bit intimidated by it, to be honest with you, because I'm not one for like, I find it quite embarrassing to ask for like money to like fundraise. Like, I raised $5,000 to fund my election campaign, and that was mainly trade unions that gave me small donors, crowdfunding, and working at the back of my car, So I never had any concept of how this big money thing works. Like I was looking at Jo Swinson, like she'd raised over $100,000.
It's an industry in itself, isn't it?
And it's big checks of like $20,000 a piece, and it's like I was like, whoa, this is a different league, Couldn't believe it really. But also made me like quite kind of concerned about how much influence is this buying as well. Like I don't know, but you do worry. Like, does it mean that you have to act a certain way, or do you just have to support
the $5,000
things?
you raised out the back of your car is maybe no buying the same influence for the people that donated to you as the $100,000 to
I was just buying some
a party
leaflets.
leader or whatever.
But fair enough. Like Unite, I'm a member of the Unite trade union from my days working in the shipyards, and they gave me a couple of grand, and but that's like fine because I work on trade union campaigns,
Absolutely.
like locally, like the Unite trade union represented the guys at the Cali Rail Works, for example. So I do help out with the trade union cause. But that is part and parcel of how I want to be as an MP anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like I'm having to change my behaviour very much, and it goes totally with the grain of the purpose of having trade unions and organising.
Absolutely.
But that kind of aspect of politics did concern me, and I think there needs to be tighter rules around, these kind of anonymous donors that can act in the background and potentially influence events, or at least a better understanding of what they're getting for the money.
Definitely.
They're donating,
And there needs to be a level of transparency, like. I was not surprised by the notion that people were, vandalising and betting against our economy.
But look
I
at
was
Vote Leave,
shocked to the extent at which it happened. Yeah,
the systematic, abuse of the rules around, lying on adverts, using immigration is an issue.
Yep.
You know, lying about the financial aspects of it all.
Yep.
You know, then the sort of the wall of disinformation that was going on is extraordinary and frightening. And I think that's the thing that is really concerning, the disorientation
This is it.
that's going on. People don't know what to believe anymore. They don't know what's correct, what's
Yeah.
accurate.
It is a typically kind of tactic associated with Russia, because that it's not necessarily that Russia might want to say, for example, destroy the EU or the UK Union. It's about maintaining the state of flux and disorientation. And I think when you look at Vote Leave and these other things, some of the allegations made about them and how they've manipulated and potentially weaponized our personal data and stuff like that against us, like, this is exactly where I feel we are, where the forces that are driving this at a higher end are actively trying to not just destabilise us, but just keep us in that flux, because if we can't, plant our feet and take a stand on it, then life's a lot easier for them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think like a lot of the stuff, I mean personally, like I get right into conspiracy theories a few years ago, and got myself out. Thankfully, didn't ever really believe a lot of it, but was kind of like, and I feel like there's been like a hijacking of that in the sort of YouTube thing where, if you were to go to people and say to them like, Vote Leave lied, where they would go, well, I've seen a documentary that tells us that it's all true, that Turkey was going to join and there was going to be 25,000 Turks that came here and blah, 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 and all this sort of like fear-mongering.
It's very hard when you get somebody like that to actually reason with them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people like that now as well that are only believing the mainstream media and just being like, that's just all disinformation. But this guy's YouTube video that I watched, it's an hour and a half long, it's the ramblings of pretty much somebody that could probably have like mental illness. I believe that. I believe that over what the newspapers are telling me, because there's one example when they lied to us back in 2000, and I mean, one of the ones that screamed out to me was Gordon Brown sold all the gold, and this is one that you see quite a lot. But when you actually look at the statistics,
pirates maybe. Like,
but the thing is, it's like you're trading commodities for something else, and they all fluctuate in value from time to time.
Yeah,
and so I was going to say, but it's just nonsense. You know what I mean? Because like
it really is just nonsense. When you look at
gold
it.
Was like 1% of our national wealth. Anyway, like, and it was being traded for in exchange for dollars and other commodities that then changed in value as well. So like, it's mental that people still have this idea that the currency is backed by gold. And it hasn't been since the 1970s.
Yeah.
And it's like the currency has value because everybody agrees it's got value. Yeah. It runs by essentially consent.
Yeah.
People don't. It blows people's minds when they realise that. The paper you've got in your wallet doesn't actually have any value.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that everybody in the country and internationally agrees that it does have value.
Yeah. That's it.
But there's no such thing as you can go into a bank and exchange £10 for like an ounce of gold or something.
Whatever it used to be.
It used to work like that, where there was the Bank of England could only issue currency to the value of the gold reserves it had. And it doesn't work like that anymore.
No, I voted Remain, but one of the main things that concerns me is that this sort of anti-democratic message that the extreme right can use as like a battering ram.
Yeah.
Like if we don't, I mean, unfortunately, from my perspective, we voted to leave, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you said earlier on, that we should have had like a unilateral coming together of all parties, and we should have actually planned to leave in a sort of organised fashion, got a deal that everybody that Parliament voted for. And I don't know if maybe potentially that Theresa May has been trying to sort of hijack it, or like there's been...
it's about the fact the biggest mistake she made obviously was having the snap election in 2017, because she thought Labour's trailing way behind in the polls, so I can call an election just now and I can gain even more seats.
Reinforce my majority.
Yeah, but what she was struggling with, even with her majority, was getting enough votes for any one version of a deal. And then what she thought was, I'll take another bet, have an election, get more MPs in. I'm therefore able to get round all the awkward squad in Parliament, all the Boris Johnsons, the Rees Moggs, the people who are extreme Brexiters, and have enough moderate voices to get a deal packaged up and sold without relying on the Labour Party. And then it backfired massively, because not only did she go backwards, she then had to rely on the DUP, who are even more extreme, and
didn't even believe in dinosaurs.
They didn't even agree to the Good Friday Agreement, so like, not only did they not care about those issues that are massive in Ireland about
so
the peace
backstops
process
and stuff like that is just irrelevant to them.
Yeah, so all of that's like become a huge issue about how you square off Brexit, because where do you draw the line? Do you draw it down the Irish Sea between the island of Great Britain and Ireland, or do you draw it between the Republic and Northern Ireland? You know, so it's a difficult situation, and there's no real way of squaring that circle, to be honest with you, other than just remaining a member state without some degree of difficulty, or having a deal that works. But the way that she's agreed the deal means that it's so flawed, particularly in the customs union single market issues, that nobody can sign up to it. So it got defeated massively.
So damaging.
It managed to piss off the extreme Brexiters who wanted to leave with no deal. And it didn't.
I think it was the biggest parliamentary defeat in history, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
You know,
and
like, wow.
It was defeated, you know, massively in 3 occasions, and you know, 2 occasions. And
the absolute folly of coming back for it time and time again as well was just mad. And I was like, "What are you doing?" Like,
I know it was demented, and she didn't seem to. She was probably the worst prime minister at that particular point in time, because she wasn't capable of lateral thinking or any sort of creativity. You know, and it was actually quite interesting to hear. You know, even Tony Blair was saying, you know, you should have just had free votes in Parliament on a series of options, put them forward, then agreed it, and then went forward. And then once it had been agreed with the EU, put it back to the people and go, right, there's the only version I leave that everybody's agreed in Parliament. Do you want it or not? Sign it off.
Of course.
And that gives you the final, you know, it's a bit like putting down an offer on a house, and then when you get the home report through and the mortgage deal through, then you get a final chance to sign off or back out, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we need to do on Brexit. Now, the only way, in my view, the only way forward is going to be a public vote on it. And you know, the prorogation of Parliament is basically an anti-democratic exercise by these kind of sociopaths to try and block parliamentary scrutiny, to block any sort of being held to account. I mean, the irony is that if the Supreme Court doesn't, of course, I mean, we'll find out, I suppose, this week. But maybe by the time the podcast is out, we'll know what's happening. History's moving so quickly just now, so it's difficult to even predict a couple of weeks in advance. But like, if the Supreme Court does rule to uphold the Court of Session's decision that it is unlawful, then they'll have to recall Parliament. You know, so we might be back before the 14th of October. If not, then we're into the 14th. But even then, Boris Johnson's been Prime Minister for almost 100 days. It's about 80 odd days.
Yep.
And he'll only have been subject to parliamentary scrutiny for 4 of those days. It's crazy.
Damaging.
It's crazy, you know. And like I say, within that period, how much has gone on that we haven't been able to hold them to account over, not just on Brexit, but all sorts of other manner of issues.
Yeah.
And, you know...
domestic abuse for a start.
Well, domestic abuse bill, you know, it fell away, and, you know, I know Jess Phillips was working hard on that issue. And, you know, it's stuff like the Cali, for example. I mean, I was lucky enough to get I got Theresa May's last PMQ, asked her about the Cali. She fobbed me off. The next day, Boris Johnson came to power, had a statement, asked him about the Cali. So it was 2 prime ministers in 24 hours, you know, about the Cali, and he was just like, it's a devolved issue. And I'm like, it's not devolved. It's like, it's a combination of being devolved and reserved. A lot of the issues are devolved, but there's certainly stuff he could be doing to help out with the Cali, you know, in Springburn. And it's just like, I'm trying to bring it back to relevant issues to help the constituency.
I think that's probably a good point to maybe try and move on for Brexit a wee bit, because one of the things that, you know, obviously brought you to my attention is my local MPs, and we said as we were talking in the build-up to this, is just like how visible you are. Like, we had representatives of the Ask the 700 campaign on, we seen you out campaigning with them on Suckyhall Street, same as ourselves. You know, there's been other issues, like the Cali was one that was particularly close to my heart. You know, I still live in Royston. I grew up there. My dad grew up there. My granddad grew up there. They worked at the Cali and the Forge respectively. Like, this was a massive industry for Glasgow. I've got family who, up until the recent closure, were also working there. And I'm a bit like, I mean, this was a profitable enterprise. I think one of the guys I spoke to in the build up to the closure had said that they made something like £4 million profit the year before. And I'm a bit like, why does a company that makes £4 million profit want to close a profitable branch of its organisation?
You mentioned the Forge at Parkhead, which closed in 1983. And it's actually I'll send you a link to it, but there's a really good documentary. It was filmed in Glasgow around that time, and it features the closure of the Forge. And the parallels with that actually are striking with the Cali. And I call it the branch plant syndrome. Right, so the problem with the Cali and the Forge, as it happens back in the day, was they weren't masters of their own destiny as an industrial facility. So the Cali was owned by a German company called Mutares. They'd just been sold from another German company called Norbrems.
Right.
And they were sold off in a deal that basically involved them getting money, millions of pounds from the predecessor company to shut the Cali down.
All right.
And they basically were paid to do the dirty work for them. The main centre of the headquarters of the company in Britain was in Milton Keynes. It's the main railway works for the company. It's maybe 2 or 3 times bigger than the Cali.
Right.
But over the years, more and more stuff was just moved down to Milton Keynes. There's a wheel shop in Springburn that used to turn and maintain all the wheels for all the trains in Scotland. It could do any type of wheel in any railway rolling stock in Britain. It's the only place in the UK could do it. That was shut down a couple of years ago. There's been a chip away at the Cali over a few years.
Because it's been on. I think in a tweet to yourself at the time, I did kind of describe, or it was to somebody had responded to one of yours. Like one of the guys had tried to frame it in a kind of SNP bad kind of way, and I was like, mate, I mean, like the Cali had been dying a death of 1,000 paper cuts for 10, 50. I mean, when my dad was there, 25 year, there wasn't a year went by where it wasn't talking about, well, this is the year we're going, and
it's the cat with 9 lives.
It's one of them, aye.
Yeah, but the thing about the Cali was, I was born in 1989, but the year I was born, the Cali covered everything where the current Tesco's is, the Costco is, the Royal Mail Depot. It was a massive, massive site. It employed maybe 2,000-3,000 people. And it was a bit like the Parkhead Forge at that time as well. In 1983, when it shut, there were only 400 guys left there.
Yeah.
When the Cali closed this year, a couple of months ago, 200 folk were working there. It's way, way down on what it was in its heyday. And that's the tragedy of it. We were just trying to keep the flame alive for the last bit of it and to give it a footprint to grow again. But you're right, it was a profitable site. It could have continued to work successfully. A lot of the train maintenance organisations in Scotland are dumbfounded about why it's shut down. But we've actually just discovered with the trade union in the last couple of weeks that the ScotRail train has been maintained in a depot in Southampton just now. So we're trying to actually acquire evidence about what's going on there. Because why are they sending ScotRail trains to the south of England to get maintained? Could get done in the Cali easily. We've also heard that there's a risk of potential casualisation going on at the Cali. So we've heard rumours that basically the company that's leased the site is owned by a company called Hansteins, which is a company that just owns all sorts of industrial buildings all over Britain. It's got a massive portfolio. They leased the site to the company that is currently was operating there, called Gemini Rail, a subsidiary of Mutares, which had been sold from Norbrems. So it's a total shell game.
It's not just a simple
it's a follow the thread of various companies that are just after shafting the workforce. The good thing about that workforce was it was 95% trade union represented, so they were able to fight back and they were able to get robust representation, and they weren't going to go down without a fight. But we've heard that now they've got shot of the permanent workforce, they're planning basically to bring in contractors and agency staff to do 2-3 month temporary projects on the site, and just there'll be start up agency staff brought in 0 hours contracts, whatever, do a specific train project and then shut it down again, and that's how they're going to plan to move forward. So we are preparing to mobilise against that agenda. So there's going to be a public meeting in Springburn in the next couple of weeks. It's a Morning Star event that they're organising up in Balgrave Community Centre. And I'll just find the information about it. But it'd be good if people, if they wanted to come along and find out more about the story of the Cali, I can certainly find out some more information about that. So that's going to be the fight for the Cali. Les Ashton, the convener, who's at the works, is speaking at it. Pat McElville from United Trade Union and Mick Hogg from the RMT Union. That'll be at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 1st of October, at the Community Centre on Balgrave Hill Road. So if anybody wants to come along and hear more about it,
we'll get that shared along the way as well.
But the thing is, we need to get the community engaged in this issue, because if there is a risk of casualisation, we need to resist it. But the campaign to reopen the site continues. The thing is, it was nationalised from 1948 to 1995 as part of the British Rail. Our argument is, if the Scottish Government and as Labour does, wants to create a publicly owned railway. We're totally up for that. We want to cooperate with the SNP on this. There's always this myth that we're always fighting against each other. And we're just saying, look, we agree with this idea. What we're dumbfounded by is, if you want to do it, we're better to start rebuilding a public railway in Scotland than to start with the Calais.
Yeah.
Bring it into public control. Just say, this is the depot where all the maintenance for the Scottish trains gets taking place.
Yeah.
Let's create a new footprint. Let's build a new company up. And even I had this idea. It was a bit. I mean, admittedly, I'm a bit of a heritage nerd. I do this. I do tours of Springburn. I've grown up in Springburn. Fascinated with the history of it.
Is it the greenhouse?
The
or
Winter Gardens.
Winter
I've been
Garden as
working
well?
to try and raise the funds to restore it in the last few years. It's a hard slog, but chipping away at that as well. But like, I had this idea. There's an old steam engine. It was built in Springburn. It's up at Summerlee and Coatbridge. And the idea of bringing that back down to the Calais.
I used to love Summerlee.
It's fantastic, yeah. I went up recently, obviously, to see the steam engine, but this massive South African steam engine. It was built in the Flemington Street at the Hyde Park Works. I thought, bring it back to the Calais, pay the guys to refurbish it into a working steam engine, because the reason why it was brought back from South Africa in the first place to Scotland in the 80s was actually to refurbish it and run it on the Heritage Railway at Bo'ness.
Yeah.
It'd be the only example of like a engine built in Glasgow to be sent abroad, running in Scotland.
There's absolutely a market for that. People take these, quote unquote historical train journeys to Inverness and all across the UK.
It was just an idea. I was like, that would keep the guys going for a year maybe to refurbish this engine. It'd be an amazing story about the heritage of Springburn. What's not to like about it? Surely the government could just write a cheque now. Let's do it. It wouldn't involve state aid rules, and the government just pushed back all the time. They're just like, oh, it would involve state aid rules. I'm like, your arse, it wouldn't involve state aid rules. I've checked this out. You can do it because the whole point of the project is to be done in Springburn, because it's part of the heritage of the area.
Yeah.
And they've just not got it. They can't seem to get their head around what I was trying to suggest. It's been like banging your head up a brick wall with them. Not only on the nationalisation, all they want to do is try and advertise the site to get another company to come in and take it over. They're not prepared to actually get stuck in and do it personally. And it's so frustrating, And I was hearing that, when they intervened at Ferguson's down in Port Glasgow, the minister was saying, oh, I'll probably get some kickback for this, but frankly, I need the ferries done, I don't need the trains.
Okay.
That was pissing me off. And I think it's important people know that's what's been said behind closed doors, It's shocking. And my job as an MP really is to basically just kick up about that, because there's too many folk that have just sat back and let it happen, in my view. And my biggest frustration growing up was seeing the area declining, or seeing the area, well, maybe not decline, it had declined by the time I was born pretty much, but like just seeing an area that you knew had been much more prosperous and much more dynamic and thriving in the previous decades.
Yeah.
An area that had 80% of its buildings knocked down, that had seen all its major industries closed down, that had the stuffing knocked out of it really. The population's like half of what it was in 1950. So my idea was like, now I've got a chance to be, as an MP, advocating to rebuild the area. And it's like, I'm not going to tolerate a step backwards like the Calais shutting down. So we're going to absolutely fight to try and save it. And I'll tell you what, we're not just going to now say, oh, it's shut, so we're going to let it go.
No.
We're saying there's definitely going to be a railway engineering company going in there at some point. We're going to be fighting there to keep it back up, get it back up and running, because it's not going to be another Tesco's, And I don't mean to decry, I worked in a supermarket, but we need to have industrial skilled employment.
There needs to be more than just sort of low paid jobs and communities.
And I was standing actually in the car park at the Tesco's, and I was kind of looking at the Calais, and then I was kind of looking over at Tesco's, and I was thinking, that's basically the last 40 years of this country's economy in a nutshell.
Defined.
Like the closure of skilled industry, apprentices, unionised jobs, and its replacement by casualised labour, lower wage labour, unskilled labour. And I was just thinking, that's where the front line of this fight really is.
Yeah.
I talk about Brexit, a lot of people are voting leave, and also I'd argue a lot of people are voting for independence because a lot of those issues, the economic disenfranchisement they
Definitely.
feel. And in my view, is maybe misdiagnosed or mistargeted, in my opinion. But the real fight is against the economic forces that are forcing it.
My dad's the poster child for it when it comes to the Calais, because he was there 25 years. Took his kind of early retirement in his mid-50s, and his first job after sort of semi-retirement for the Calais was at Tesco.
Right.
So I think there was an initiative to reposition guys who had recently left the Calais with Tesco's. My dad was there cut the ribbon on
Right.
the Tesco building as, you know, this sort of long-term servant of the Cali.
Aye.
And the minute they were done with him, they fucked him off onto the night shift for 2 years.
Horrendous.
And he never seen the light of day for the best part of, 2 years, you know what I mean? Like, so it's that way that they went for being, this is, a link to our heritage, and this is where the St. Rollock site has come from. And then the minute the cameras were gone, they were like, right, night shift, we see you later. You know what I mean? Like,
So it's just a kind of an industrial fetish almost that, we're playing lip service to the heritage and the dignity of a community. It's kind of offensive in a way, to see that shattering a working class dignity. And when you see that, it was interesting in that documentary I mentioned about the Ford shutting down. One of the guys was talking about the political organisation of a community like Springburn and Bridgeton.
Yep.
He was talking about these working class districts in Glasgow. You'd have massive political engagement. You'd have loads of political halls around Springburn. You'd have Labour Party halls. You'd have Independent Labour Party halls, Communist Party, Socialist Party, trade union lodges, and all the rest of it. And all of that kind of hotbed of so-called Red Clydeside organisation has been fractured, partly because of the deindustrialisation, but also because physically people were moved out of the community, and they were moved into what were called dormitory suburbs. And one of the points that was made in this documentary was, what's the literal sense of dormitory? A place to sleep.
Yeah.
So we're kind of saying, as Glaswegians slept, the fight went out of them.
Yeah.
The fight to actually win for their communities in terms of dignity, wages, and industrial dignity, progress.
It was almost beaten out to a sense.
Yeah, but it was a pacification. It was almost more subtle than that. It was almost like, we'll give you a house with a toilet in it, indoor toilet. But what else is?
It was seen as progress.
But but what's been taken away? Do you
think that reindustrialisation's a solution?
Well, I believe that the biggest challenge facing us right now is the environment and how we address the challenges of our climate. And I think we're on the cusp of a new industrial revolution. Glasgow became the hotbed of an industrial revolution when it was the steam age. And my view is, if we get it right, Glasgow should be at the forefront of a new industrial revolution about the new technologies to do with the environment. And this idea, people go, the green agenda, it's all to do with just, eating vegan food and all
no
this,
using plastic straws.
And it's all kind of tokenistic stuff, that kind of thing. And then it's almost like it's an inconvenience. My view is, actually, the opportunity is to massively reindustrialise this country by being at the forefront of developing the new technologies. So whether it is, high-speed, environmental efficient trains, public transport systems, heating systems, energy generating systems, whatever it might be, we need to have factories and skilled employees working in these industries that could grow in the future.
Absolutely.
But also create the finance to allow these things to grow. That's what Glasgow was built on. It was built on a bunch of guys that were essentially industrial geniuses who came up with how to create the steam engine and make it more efficient. And a bunch of guys that thought, why don't we stick it in some ships? Why don't we stick it in some steam trains? And it all just exploded. It was massive. And it was a combination of entrepreneurialism, engineering know-how, and a ready-made pool of labour coming in from Ireland, from the famine, and from the Highlands for the clearances. And that's how Glasgow basically kind of was this powder keg that basically exploded into a massive industrial city. It was the fourth biggest in Europe, and it's an amazing story, really. But the flip side of that is the massive decline of the city industrially in the last 45 to 50 years is something we've not really moved on from. But not only that the people who could get out of these communities have left. And what it means is the communities that are left behind are disproportionately poorer and sicker and live less long than an average.
Yeah, some of the statistics are horrific.
Need some of the skills as well. We don't have people. We don't have like. I mean, if I had been born 50 years before 1983, I would have probably worked I'd have been a skilled worker. Whereas now, I'm pretty much a salesman. Do you know what I mean? And that's
Well, I mean, the economy's changed, and people, the days of going into a job from school and working until you're retired in the same place is long gone. More or less. And I don't know if that's entirely desirable. Because it's basically like a kind of a drone, basically.
But a life sentence all the time.
But Jimmy Reid said something that was quite powerful. When it was back in the 90s, he was standing in a field between Mulgai and Drumchapel, and the camera kind of panned over when he was talking, and he was just saying, look, the average life expectancy over in Drumchapel is 60 odds, and Mulgai is 70 odds. The average life sentence for murder in Scotland is 10 to 15 years. He's like, literally by being born and living in that community, not that community, you're getting a life sentence. You know, and then when you put it like that, it's, you know, you cross the coastal lights from Bishopbriggs to Springburn. You know, it's a significant change in the statistically in the life expectancy. But that's because everybody who was upwardly mobile in Springburn moved to Bishopbriggs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like they called it Spam Valley for a reason.
Right.
You know, but I just mean, like, we need to address the huge physical inequalities in the city.
Yeah.
Longer term. You know, and one of the things that, you know, I was talking to the local housing association, and the way they put it, because there are people like, well, how do we create more social housing? How do we create X and Y type of housing, better housing in the community? And one of the things they were saying to me, which I didn't really fully appreciate before, was like, well, think about it, son. You know, you get a couple that are in a, you know, renting a house, a council house in Springburn. They have, you know, a kid that goes on to college, goes to become a policeman, say, goes out with a lassie that's a nurse. They both get together, save up some money, they look to buy a house. They've got enough to buy it somewhere.
Yeah.
The reality is there's not many opportunities to buy a house in somewhere like Springburn. So what they're going to do is go up to Rob Royston, they're going to go up to Bishopbriggs and buy a house.
Yeah.
And then they've gained in skills, they've got good quality jobs, they've improved, but are they living in the community? They've just moved on to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then the actual community doesn't benefit from it.
Yeah.
So it kind of blew my mind a bit when I was thinking
Like
about
the
it.
local
saying-
equivalent of brain drain.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and it's that's the kind of things we need to address as well. We need to Springburn back in the day had the owner of the locomotive industry living next to Springburn Park. All the management of the industry lived in Springburn. The workers lived in Springburn. That's why things like the Winter Gardens were built, the libraries were built, because the wealthy people lived there as well, and they wanted everybody to share in the proceeds. I don't necessarily agree with exploitative capitalism and paternalism like that, but there was a reality there where people were all bought into the
It
community.
was well intentioned a lot of the
You know
time.
what I mean?
You need to bridge the gap between this guy and this guy.
Yeah, the
really,
people
like,
who own
one
the
at
wealth.
bottom and the one at the top. It's
Yeah.
just the gap's far too big, and the guy at the top can afford to
can't
live in
really-
Bell's Den.
Yeah,
He doesn't
the
need
top
to live
1% of this country's people, you know, they own more wealth than the bottom 50% combined. You know,
It's that
And
gap stops us from being able to like relate to each other. And as we were
Yeah,
talking
and
at
it
the start of the show, was like these people who are represented as the gap between us and them is so big that we can't realistically expect them to represent us accurately because they don't come from where we come from, they don't experience what we experience. But as I said, you know, what you're proposing there is probably quite a reasonable argument, an alternative to it. Like, I'm wary of the fact that we're getting pretty sort of tight on time, so we want to just start to you know, bring the wrap up process into play.
Time flies.
Aye, it's to say it every time, man. So one of the things that I want to address, having a Labour MP here, it's too good an opportunity not to.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to preface it by saying I'm politically engaged because I love the politics of the Labour movement. Like, up until very recently, I've always considered myself, you know, Labour-minded. Obviously, Scottish independence has skewed some of that, but I still like to look at things on a case-by-case basis, and we've discussed this a number of times on the show in the past. Like, your record with guys like the 700, the Calais, and whatnot are all stuff that, policy-wise, I 100% agree with, and I can see beyond the fact that, you know, I didn't vote for you, unfortunately, the last time out, because I was very much in the mindset of SNP will provide me with independence.
Yeah.
But looking at your record and your activity and your visibility, even things like, you know, talking in the Houses of Parliament about Nakadar and stuff like that, which is like the best Indian takeaway ever.
It is very
by the
good.
way.
Johnny and Tony Ginda do a good job.
We love it in the office.
Is that the one across the road?
It's down at Duke Street.
Oh, right. Right. I used to be next to
It was
White Street.
a surreal. I entered them into this competition in Parliament, run by Keith Vaz,
Right.
and it's the Tiffin Cup. It's called, and it's for the best curry house in Britain. It was just a bizarre scene, like to see the guys down in the Parliament cooking up a butter chicken masala thing.
The stuff's dynamite.
And
Love them.
but it was like Ainsley Harriott was like in the chair of judges. It was just like these guys for East End, like Ainsley Harriott hanging out in Parliament.
So I
It was
mean,
just a
like
bit surreal.
looking at your record, I'm going to go out there and say like I'm going to vote for you when the next election comes round because I think as a representative for my area, you've been absolutely dynamite. You know what I mean? Like, but there is this tension that, you know, has arrived because people like myself, we have grown up on the Labour Party, we love it, and in 2014 we felt betrayed by it when they stood next to Tories to tell us what was best for us, and I think there's been a pretty sizable hangover off the back of that for the Labour Party, particularly in Scotland, and I just wonder sometimes, like, would all your lives not be easier if the Labour Party in Scotland just took a neutral stance on independence? Just went, when there is an independence referendum, we will come with our proposals, we will come with, you know, what we think and what we want to happen. But see, between now and then, when I'm running your constituency, when I'm trying to provide you with jobs, when I'm trying to provide you with services, when I'm trying to make sure that you get the most out of your area as possible, I'm just not getting into that debate.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on, to be very honest with you. The way that the referendum ran in 2014 was massively counterproductive in my view, because it chased after a section of the population that they thought were susceptible to, you know, being doubtful about things.
Yeah.
And then that meant the narrative was very much on the negatives. I would talk up opportunity, because I think people want to have to have hope.
Yep.
You know, and the problem again, as I said, was at the start with the Brexit, is like, I don't necessarily agree with these binary situations where it's like throw the lever to yes or throw the lever to no.
Yeah.
I actually think I'm not a Europhile by any stretch of the imagination. I believe that we should be in the European Union, but it's not meaning I'm signed up to thinking it's a fantastic structure, institution.
There's
You know, look what
flaws
they
in
did to Greece. You know, I'm very much of the view that we need to fight with left wing and socialist allies across Europe to reform the institutions against capitalism.
Yep.
You know, and make it a social Europe. But at the same token, I've got a similar, almost a consistent view of how the UK could work. That, you know, when I go to Liverpool, you know, it's like it just feels like Glasgow, doesn't it? I don't go there and think it's an alien place to be. You know, I'm just like, we should working class people need to work together to fight back against the likes of Boris Johnson, the Tories. The opportunity to transform the country lies in having a Labour government in the Parliament to form a government that can transform lives across the UK for working people. But I think the problem with the UK is it's structurally flawed at the moment.
Yeah.
It's massively over-centralised. It's not got a codified constitution. There's still a democratic deficit that exists. And I think you're right. I'm quite happy with what John McDonnell said. I don't know if there was a big stushy over it and a big dispute. And he was saying, look, if a mandate is clear and unequivocal from a Scottish Parliament election that another referendum on this question wants to be brought forward by the people, then it's not the Labour Party's job to block that. It's the Labour Party's job to sort of agree that there's a mandate there. You know, and I'm really pleased with that, because I think that's only democracy. You know? However, my difficulty with it is I think we need to have a much more open conversation about the opportunities that we could look at. You know, my view is I've always believed it since I was like 14 years old that a federal UK is the way to go.
Okay.
And I was kind of frustrated by the 2014 referendum, because you're basically forced to sort of round up or down from yes to no, depending on where you felt your views were best aligned. Some people admittedly are just like, Scotland's a country should be independent, you know, and that's how it should be. You know, fair enough. It's a respectable ideological view. It's just not an analysis that I tend to share, because I'm thinking about things through a lens of how do class dynamics work, how does capitalism function in the international system, how do you best fight against that? You know, I mean, it's a whole podcast in itself, really. But to try and keep it to time. Basically, what I'm saying is, I don't think that it's helpful to necessarily have a binary way forward on that any referendum in the future. I think there ought to be a number of maybe options where people say, like, we've got this idea of what independence could look like. It could be with our own currency, with being part of the EU. It could be blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But then I think there should be an option where it's, saying a UK-wide level, we've got this federal constitution idea where English politics gets kicked out of Westminster, and the Westminster becomes like a balanced federal parliament where each region and nation gets its own equal say in it. The House of Lords is removed and it's replaced with a Senate that's elected with proportional representation. That in England, basically, you break the England, which is a huge state of or a huge nation of 50 million odd people. Down into units of about 5 to 10 million, and they have their own parliament or assembly in those areas like Yorkshire, West Country, whatever it might be, and then they have powers equivalent to Holyrood, restore devolution to Northern Ireland, beef up the powers of the London Assembly, the Welsh Assembly to the equivalent to Holyrood, and then you have a codified constitution which spells out completely the rules of engagement between each section of the country and how they interface with each other, how the balances work, and how that all can hang together. And that could be an option for people to vote for.
Yeah. My concern there is my concern there is that, like, if and when an independent Scotland becomes a thing, my biggest fear, if we're going to talk about that sort of notion of fear, is that there won't be a credible or functional Labour Party in Scotland when the time comes. And, like, I think, guys, particularly like yourself, you do tend to sidestep a lot of the SNP bad stuff, largely speaking, quite well, and stick to
do my best. Sometimes I get wound up.
Yeah, sometimes.
It's easy to get wound up though in this game.
But, like, what has turned me off most about the Labour Party in Scotland is taking legitimate criticism of the Scottish Government on policy, but then also pouring a big dose of SNP bad on the tapet. And I'm like, I'm smart enough to get that if hospitals are failing, just dig them out about that. If schools are failing, there's your criticism. It doesn't all have to be related to this wider independence referendum that may or may not happen down the line. And I think it kind of draws away from it. And I think what I've liked most about how you've conducted yourself, or how I've largely seen you conduct yourself, is that you do stick to policy, you do go out on the streets and talk to people about the issues, you do represent at a really sort of good percentage of the time at Parliament and stuff like that. And I'm like, free the chatter, what may or may not come down the line, like, these are extremely effective. And I think that's what I want to see Mary for the Labour Party. I think if you're going to get back to where you were in Scotland, it needs to be, for me, you're going, right, well, look, the independence debate will happen when it happens, but right now, our schools are this, our hospitals are that, our transport system is here, whatever it is, and just actually, like, get after that neutrally, the stance of one or the other. And I don't see a lot. You're there, but even now, the newer guys that are standing up for upcoming elections and councils and that, do they give you like a textbook about how to relate everything to why it's the SNP's fault, or like what?
I think you've got a fair point there. In my view, I mean, I've said this a few times. We should stop defining ourselves in terms of our political opponents.
Yeah.
We've got a really, in my view, the Labour Party has got an exciting plan and an exciting vision for how this country could be improved. I'd rather just talked about that. And fair enough, we can say about the Cali, say, look, I want to see this happen with the Cali. Would you please get behind this idea to try and save it?
Yep. I'm
not going to sit there and go, you're inherently bad or flawed. I'm just trying to say I'm dismayed, I'm frustrated that you're not getting behind this idea for the Cali. It's just as one example. Drug deaths is another one where there's a huge problem with drug-related deaths.
Yeah,
in the
prominence of these are getting bigger and bigger.
And it's like I'm fine with criticising the Tories. Obviously, I'm no stranger to doing that. Tore into them in Westminster about why aren't you reforming the drug laws that are antiquated? The 1971 Misuse of Drugs Act is not worth the paper it's written on. It's totally obsolete now. But in the same token, I'll then say the thing that you don't want to talk about as SNP MPs is the fact that drug addiction services in Glasgow have been cut.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about that as well.
Of course.
Because I think that's an issue.
Definitely is.
It's not me having a go at the SNP, just for the sake of it. I'm saying I'm coming at it with how do we help fix the problem? I've spoke to folk who are, at the front line of the drugs issues in the constituency. They're coming back telling me these things. I need to have that conversation. I need to raise that issue. Why was the naloxone programme for heroin addiction pushed out of central funding? Why has it been pushed into health boards when it's a postcode lottery now?
Yeah.
These are issues. Why can't we have a drug testing service like they have in Wales, so that people taking, Valium or ecstasy, whatever it might be, various benzos and so on, can get it tested to make sure it's okay before they take it. We need to. There's a lot of stuff that could be innovated on now. Rather than just try to turn it into a sort of, if only we could get control of this, we could do something.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you were genuinely straining at the leash with everything we've got now,
you could find a way.
Then you could, you could do something to make it. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean they get off the hook. We're saying the laws need to change about the drug classifications. I'm saying yes, absolutely, totally up for that.
But also work around it to the best of your ability.
We need a mind map here of all the things that need fixed.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, what's convenient for your agenda, if you know what I mean.
That's great.
So that's where I'm coming at. I want to just do what I can to try and improve the situation.
Yeah.
You know, because
I
I'm
think
not really
that's something that we need more of.
I think that's where the
fair
strength is.
representatives,
Yeah.
because that's a lot of like what's missing is that. Like exactly what you're saying, I get frustrated. I'm with Matt. I come from a family of traditional Labour voters that switched to SNP during the independence referendum, and something that's frustrated me about SNP and Labour is that almost all the time it's like it seems like an agenda's getting played that the SNP are maybe not tackling things so that they can say, well, that's Westminster's problem, and it's like, well, do you know what? It's our problem. It's not their. I mean, they might have the power to do something about it, but how about we look at other ways to try and combat these things instead of letting things get so bad that you can then go, we should be independent of that down there. It's like it's getting to the point now where it's like, can we not just?
We're gambling.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Parliament was set up in Holyrood. The idea was it was born out of Thatcherism. It was born out of the frustration of the Thatcher years, if you like, about never again will a Thatcherite government be able to just ride roughshod over people. And the idea of the Parliament was, I suppose, to act as a sort of force field to an extent against that.
Buffer.
And I don't feel that it's been fully deployed, if you know what I mean. And that might be for certain cynical reasons, because it suits, to just get it smashed and then they can go, if only we had the full thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be like, totally cynical about that, but I definitely think it's important to call those issues out when I see them, on the ground. And I'm just doing what I can, as best I can to try and improve the area. And, you're right about, there's a lot of Labour voters who voted yes. Constituency I represent voted, I think, 57% yes. That's why the Labour share of the vote halved, from 2010 to 2015. And then it climbed back up again because people saw in 2017, I've got a genuine socialist Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn who's proposing pretty radical shake-up of what could happen. I fancy putting my tick on that box this time to see how it goes. And it was enough to win by 200 votes, believe it or not. But I think, there's an opportunity to see this government take shape. We can beat Boris Johnson, kick him out, and actually have a socialist Labour government.
If we can't beat this guy, then I think we'll need to pack up and go home.
Well, that's my view. I just think this is going to be the biggest. I don't know when an election might come. It's difficult to time it exactly, but it's going to be one hell of a fight, and it's a fight for a generation.
Absolutely.
This is like, we need to get these people out. If they win,
Britain becomes a pound shop.
Yeah, we're just
Like,
totally going to be over a barrel, man. It's difficult to describe how horrific.
I said it in
the mandate would be
2 years ago and 4 years ago. It feels like, but 2020 in America and the next general election here are vital. They're so vital. We're just at this sort of breaking point.
It's a culture war. It feels
absolutely.
like a culture war. This is like it's like the end of an Avengers movie. It's like
it needs to be. I think that's the way that it needs to be. Not even sold, because it doesn't need to be sold. That people need to know that.
I think that's why it's been quite powerful to see like SNP, Labour, even Liberal Democrats. Though it's a bit dodgy how they're taking all these Tories in, but at least there's been a bit of coordination and a pretty decent cooperation in the last few weeks against Boris Johnson. It seized control of the.
It's been one
Parliament.
of the actual, saving graces of the last couple of weeks. To be honest, to see people actually cooperating in aid of the greater good for what feels like the first time in a while.
To secure that win about leaving with no deal on the 31st illegal is powerful, because it really puts Boris Johnson in a corner now, and that's why he's like a cornered animal right now. It's quite difficult to see how he gets out of this situation. So the next few weeks are certainly going to be pretty stressful and interesting. Stressful for me probably more than most people, but
maybe we can get you back in sometime and you can tell us how that panned out, because I'm wary of the fact that you're due to be elsewhere and we're kind of probably over a wee bit here and don't want to stun on your toes too much about it, but
not to worry.
I really appreciate you coming in. It's been great to speak to you. Like, as I say, I've been hugely impressed by the work in my area that you've done.
Cheers.
And on an issue by issue basis, I'll definitely be out there when the election comes back in you, man.
Somebody's vigorously rattling my door, so I better go and get it. But thanks as well, man. It's been great talking to you. It's been really interesting as well.
Yeah.
Cheers, man.